Detroit Become Human is a very, very unique game. Even if we consider it in its genre, in the storytelling game genre, there is no other game that is like Detroit Become Human. Considering the time period that's chosen, the tone, and everything that comes together into the smooth and silky package, there is no other game that is just like Detroit Become Human. Uniqueness is something that we in the gaming industry revere at a very high level. Even if a game doesn't reach the heights of the AAA titles such as God of War, Elden Ring, and many other titles, uniqueness is able to make a game special, pull at the heartstrings, and give us an experience that no other game is able to do. This is going to be a patient gamer review of Detroit Become Human. Let's get right into it, gents. Now, as usual, we are going to fragment this view into a number of parts so you guys have all the necessary information for you to make the most intelligent gaming decision for you. We'll start right off with the gameplay. This is going to be the bulk of the experience that you'll be interacting with in this game alongside the story. Now, I want to make this very, very clear to you guys. This game is very, very good and interesting, but it has a large amount of distinct flaws that you'll interact with, and it all depends on the amount of patience that you have as you go through this entire experience. Now, particularly concerning the gameplay, if I were to describe Detroit Become Human, it is tedium or tedious, the game. It is the definition of a tedious game. There are not a very, very large amount of things that you will do with your character. It's the definition of you take baby steps. Every single thing that your character does, you will do. Now, someone may argue, yo, that's just a way for them to improve the immersion. They want you to really feel like you're playing as this character. But I'll be honest with you, bro, there are times when it's absolutely unnecessary to give us commands. Now, understand that this is trying to be an interactive movie. That is what these storytelling games are able to do and what makes them particularly special. I've played a large number of these storytelling games, ranging from the Don't Not games such as Life is Strange, such as the other storytelling games made by Telltale. I've played a number of these storytelling games and I'm well acquainted with this genre. This is what I will tell you guys right off the bat. This is probably the pinnacle of every single storytelling game I've ever played. Now, Detroit Become Human has a number of flaws, but in terms of just overall player choice, the amount of branching paths that are available to you, the importance of your decisions, and the genuine weight of your decisions is absolutely palpable in Detroit Become Human. In other games where minuscule decisions won't really matter, and many other storytelling games more so give you the illusion of choice than actual choice, Detroit Become Human gives you complete and utter choice. Now, let me go back into what I was mentioning before, the tedium and the tediousness of this title. There are a large amount of things that you will do with your character that are honestly just boring, particularly during the build-up sections of the game, particularly in the beginning of the game. The game will force you to do things such as picking things up, picking up a pot, picking up a character, you'll have to move your analog stick, you have to move the entire controller up and down, left, right, shake. Now, this is definitely a lot more annoying, but I'll definitely say this, it's only for these sections of the game. Now, the thing is, there are a large amount of sections of the game that are boring and tedious like this. How do I put it? I'd say 50% of the gameplay of Detroit Become Human is good, and 50% of it is quite bad and honestly boring to a point. There's a mission where you have to find a secret base going to Jericho, and it's particularly quite boring, just dealing with the traversal, moving from place to place, finding signs and all of this. Honestly, just a boring level. And also the very beginning mission when you're playing when you're playing as Kara, the female character, when you're cleaning and doing the tedious things, bro. I personally don't like cleaning my place in general. It's not going to be any more entertaining doing it in a video game. So yeah, it's definitely very, very boring in terms of the build up and the things that you do. But I need to give Detroit Become Human, all the praise, my G. I have never played a game that has such exciting QTE, bro. Oh my goodness. These quick time events, bro, are absolutely spectacular. I don't know what they do in particular in these moments, bro, but they're able to execute it in a way where the tension is absolutely high. Every single QTE is important and special. It can completely shift the battle and the flow of things in a completely different direction if you mess up a quick time event. Very, very important that you try and do your best during these events. In other games such as the Telltale games, bro, I would honestly purposely fail some quick time events just to see what would happen, because they're honestly not that important most of the time. That's a totally different kettle of fish right here in Detroit Become Human. QuickTime events are pivotal in the game. They're pivotal to how the story and things will play out, and they are extremely exciting. The cinematography of how they're done, the tension is done at an absolutely high level, and I have to give them all the praise. Well done, Quantico Dream. Amazing stuff. These quick time events definitely make the action scenes that much better. That's why I was saying, bro, like it's a really genuinely a 50-50, because there are large amounts of tedious things that you do in this game. But when you do the exciting things, they are absolutely exciting, jaw-dropping, and interesting. So it's a very hard balance. It's definitely going to depend on you as a player. How much patience do you have? Are you willing to do these things that are pivotal to the build-up of the climax, or are you going to be somebody who's just annoyed and not bother with Detroit Become Human anyway? So it's very interesting and deep in that sense. So in terms of the gameplay, as I mentioned before, you have the ability to move your character around. It's not an RPG, so you can't level them up and do things, but you are able to move around and interact with the different things that are in the game. It's very, very closely related to the story, and the more time you spend exploring, interacting with characters and finding things, the more options you will have in terms of the storytelling, being able to have different options and decisions to make during these important decisions. The build-up, as I mentioned before, the boring 50% is essentially the build-up for the exciting action scenes. Being able to explore and finding distinct and special items. Sometimes you can even find a gun that can end up being useful and helpful to you in future activities. So that's essentially what happens. That is essentially the gameplay of Detroit Become Human. It's definitely a game that focuses much more on the storytelling elements of the game. So we're going to jump right into the story right now. Now, gents, let's get right into the meat and bones of Detroit Become Human, the narrative and the story. Now, I'm going to get this right out of the way and discuss my grievances with the story of Detroit Become Human. Now, I'm not going to give you guys any spoilers, or will definitely ensure that I avoid that. I might include a spoiler section later inside the review. There'll be timestamps in the video, so you'll be able to skip past that if there needs be. But there are foundational issues that I personally found being prevalent in Detroit Become Human. And the first one that I will mention is the way in which they handled the entire Android situation. I find it very interesting in the way that they handled the story. It was interesting. It was a compelling narrative of them using 3 characters. You play as 3 characters in this game: Kara, Marcus, and Connor, each with different goals. Sometimes they interact with each other, and it'll be very interesting depending on your decisions on how their stories will pan out. Your storytelling and your story choices will matter and affect every single one of these characters. And what's interesting is that the decisions made by one character may very well end up affecting a different character throughout their journey as they're all living and moving in the city of Detroit. The first issue that I have fundamentally with Detroit Become Human is that there kind of is an assumption or a feeling that we, one, care about the androids, or number 2, view androids as sentient beings. It was a bit of an issue for me, because for me personally, even though the game was definitely trying to push forth the narrative that androids themselves have the ability to become sentient beings who deserve to live, and that is essentially the entire conflict of this game as you fight against the rebel androids, whether they choose to do they conquest peacefully or violently? And that is essentially the entire issue of the entire story. What I found interesting is that there wasn't a third option for me to forsake the androids. There wasn't an option for me to play as a human. While I understand that this is definitely the point of the game and it's a futuristic game, I found it disappointing that I couldn't fully be on the human side per se and have an at the same time satisfying ending. It definitely was frowned upon, and you could see that the narrative definitely was pushing me towards to viewing androids as humans as well, and I found that personally a bit difficult for me. And by the time I've completed the game, I could feel like, okay, this game definitely wasn't for somebody such as myself, an individual who actually also doesn't like the androids as some of the other characters that are already placed in the story, such as Hank. And I understand that one of the characters, they can eventually change their viewpoint of androids, but for me personally, I didn't like the androids at all. But the narrative, and you'll be able to identify this as you play the game for yourself, the conflict that is here is, are androids alive or are they not alive? For me personally, I completely rejected that narrative and pushed it to the side and just saw them as mere robots. Whether you find that is morally correct or wrong, I honestly couldn't care, but I wasn't given an option to completely forsake the androids, not care about their feelings. And I found it interesting because one of the characters that is your companion as you play as Connor, Hank, he has some very interesting options, and how do I put it? The way that I wanted to move in the game didn't allow me to befriend him. And I found that it's unfortunate. And it's little things like this that showed and proved to me that the correct way of operating was to accept, love, or care for the androids in some way. And that's just a personal issue that I had with Detroit Become Human. Now, let's push my personal feelings a little bit to the side and let's try and review the narrative of Detroit Become Human objectively, considering its characters, the story, the choices, everything involved that makes this a very special, unique, and really great storytelling game in general. Now, the narrative for Detroit Become Human is very, very good. It's strong. There is a huge amount of player choice with a large amount of branching paths, and as you play the game, you'll be able to look through your main menu, and looking through the flow chart, you can see the various ways you could have taken different choices throughout the story. Now, for me personally, I'd say it's a solid story, definitely gets the job done. Depending on how you play the game will definitely be a strong factor on whether you enjoy the game or not. For me personally, regardless of that, I simply appreciate the amount of choices that we have in this game, and I definitely think that needs to be taken into consideration. And while I'm trying to review the narrative particularly objectively, I think for me personally, it kind of conflicts, because as I mentioned before, you have honestly, while there are multiple ways in which this story can definitely pan out, there are still fundamental things that will happen or will not happen. Either the androids will win, or the humans lose, or you guys are able to live peacefully together. Now, for me personally, as I mentioned before, I wanted to forsake the androids. I couldn't care less about their fate, and the overall ending that I got was that at the end of the day, the humans won. Now, don't worry guys, this is not a spoiler. There are many ways for this to go, and without the context, you don't have to worry about being spoiled about anything. It's a very, very interesting story and tale, so don't worry about that in this case. But the thing is that the issue that I found was that there really wasn't a satisfying ending in any real way fully if you are against the androids. That's the issue that I faced here, because if you're in support of the android, if you go alongside the narrative that the game is trying to push forth, you're going to have a satisfying ending. If you're someone who, was against the androids, it's a little bit more mixed. And depending on how the character story pans out for you, that's going to depend on your satisfaction and overall utility of the game. Now, understand guys, it's a bit difficult to explain this entire dichotomy without spoiling it for you, because I still want you guys to definitely go ahead and give this game a try. But there are some issues fundamentally with the story that are kind of a bit jaded and a bit off, but you'll be able to find this and determine it for yourself. If I were to consider just the narrative alone, how strong it is, I'd definitely put it more towards the 7 out of 10 territory, because it's a decent narrative, but because there's so many options, it's only so good. The story and narrative can only be so good, because your story can start or end depending on your mistakes or decisions. So it's definitely an interesting tale and dichotomy right there. Now, if we consider the auxiliary parts of the story, this is a futuristic tale in the future where androids have essentially become mass-produced, and you're able to essentially have androids working in your town, your bakery, your nanny. They do everything for you. They're your pleasurers. Your children, they can do absolutely anything for you. If I were to describe the tone of Detroit Become Human, it is definitely creepy. Absolutely creepy. From the menu screen to the end credits, it definitely is a creepy game, and there are definitely some creepy moments that you'll have to tackle at this point. Bro, there are even some moments in the game where you could even consider a little bit of horror, because there are some jump scares that come out of nowhere, especially the action scenes. But it's definitely a thriller, for sure. A thriller, high octane action scenes. Of course, depending on your approach, you can have more or less action, all depending on your decision making. For me, I preferred a little bit more action. I got my hands a little bit more dirty in comparison to other people, so I had a much more action-packed and grim story compared to other people. But yeah, guys, it's an interesting, creepy thriller tale with a huge amount of branching parts. The story can genuinely go in any direction. Nothing is safe, nobody is safe, and it can definitely go anywhere. There are a number of plot twists that happen throughout the story. So yeah, man, if you're someone who enjoys storytelling games, you probably will be intrigued by this title. I say just go ahead and give it a try. Even if it ends up not being your personal cup of tea, give it a decent shot, because it is very special, and compared to its competitors, very few games are able to compete at this level in terms of uniqueness, in terms of style, honestly, just everything, in terms of just everything that really matters in these types of games, bro. Nothing really reaches this level in terms of uniqueness, choice, and everything that's involved in making these type of games honestly quite special. Now you see, right now I'll be going right into the value section and be telling you guys all the great deals that you'd be able to procure this game at. But I definitely have some good news for you. If you are watching this video as of today, Detroit Become Human is completely free and included in the psplus package. And right now, depending on your region, there is a great sale for PlayStation Plus, and you'll be able to pick up and play Detroit Become Human immediately as soon as you've completed downloading that. So dude, it's a win-win situation. You'll be able to play some more and many other games, as PS Plus has definitely made some substantial efforts to be able to compete with the ever so growing Game Pass that comes out with brand new titles on the very, very regular basis. Now, it's an obvious decision. Go ahead and pick up Detroit Become Human. Now, you may be asking, okay, I'm saying go and pick this game up. What are my overall thoughts on Detroit Become Human? Now, I will praise Detroit for being particularly unique, special. There isn't a game that is quite like Detroit Become Human. It's special, and compared to its genre, there isn't any game like it. It's very, very unique, and David Cage has definitely done something special to be able to do something so interesting and unique. So, what is my overall rating of Detroit Become Human? I'm gonna have to give it a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. It's a good game. It all depends on whether you agree with the tone. Are you someone who enjoys futuristic type games? Kinda. At times it definitely does give you a post-apocalyptic type vibe, depending on the missions, particularly with the story missions of Kara. And there are a number of things that you'll be interacting with in this game. Very, very cool stuff that you'll be interacting with. But I have to take points away from this title because of the tedious gameplay style. Oh man, it's dude, you genuinely have to play it for yourself for you to understand what I'm talking about. And you'll experience this possibly mostly in the first 3 hours of the game. Very, very frustrating and tedious gameplay style. And depending on who you are as a person, it may put you off the entire experience. For me personally, I would recommend push past the tedium. You do get a little bit more used to it as you get used to playing the game, but try and look past the tedious aspect of the game, because the climaxes and the high points of the game are very, very high quality and very, very good. So just on that alone, it's worth going through the tedious parts of the game. Those are my thoughts on Detroit Become Human. Like, comment, and subscribe, gents. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. Detroit Become Human, after all the hype, it's a decent title. Give it a shot at the very least. It's a PlayStation exclusive, so there's still, from what I know, nowhere other place you can get it. Unless you got a PS4 emulator, bro, like, which would be crazy. But yeah, no. PlayStation is still the only place, from what I know, where you'll be able to pick up Detroit Become Human. Go ahead and pick it up, give it a shot. Tell me your thoughts. If you have played Detroit, tell me your thoughts down there in the comments, and let's have a dialogue. Take it easy, gents.